Welcome back, everyone. We are live from Chicago today discussing women in the military in honor of Military Month. This is an area near and dear to my heart as I have been supporting military for the last 13 years and certainly have been working with so many tremendous women who serve in active and reserve duties. And I'm about to become a mama to a young lady who is transitioning to the Army ROTC program in her college. So we're very, very proud of our daughter for her choice and her commitment to this nation, and appreciative so much of the women who serve. I am part of the Women in Defense program, both at the national and local area. In my hometown in Orlando, we have a very active unit in Central Florida. Oop, I have a friend. Welcome to Live. And so the WID program, or Women in Defense, is a program that incorporates women who serve and also women who support, whether that be through research or defense contracting or other supportive units. And we come together and talk about the impact that women can have in the service. And I think Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Richardson, summed it up well. He said, having women in the military improves decision making by over 60%. Wow. And what does he really mean by that? And of course, what he really means by that is that when we're in theater, or when teams are in theater, that means when they're on the battlefield or at sea, they are enhanced when there is a male-female joint team versus a singular gender represented. And really this has to do with having different perspectives and ideas, backgrounds, capabilities, interests, and viewpoints. When you bring all that together, you get a stronger team, you get stronger decisions, and you increase the probability that we can actively and appropriately defend our nation. We are just waiting for my dad to come on. He's having a little trouble finding us today. So we're just gonna do a quick check. Are you able to find us online just fine? See, we have one viewer. We're trying to, all right, there we go. He has come on, excellent. All right, we are connecting now.
I'm here.
We've just done a little bit of an intro, sharing that we're talking about women in defense today. And so we're a little short on time, given the time it takes to get online, so I'm going to turn it over to you and let you answer some questions.
Yeah, well, this is really shortened up a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm really sorry. I don't know. It just caught me off guard because it was the timing thing.
Well, this is one of the realities of live. It turns out Facebook automatically edited the timing to be Central Time when it was supposed to be Eastern Time. We crossed over the border of the line. So, lesson learned for all. And right?
I went back and looked. It said 1:30 Central Daylight Time, and
that's part of the reason that I put it right in the pictures, because I was concerned that Facebook may be smarter than I am.
Yeah.
Don't quote me. That's maybe a quote we don't want.
All right. Well, I hope we can spend a little time on this subject.
Yeah.
I hope you have a little time to spend on the subject and
absolutely.
The only thing I did want to do early on is I did want to just send out some clear messages about the weekend and what happened across our nation with regards to the events of total terrible things, and I just, my heart's, I know everyone on the call, I know Mary and I are just devastated by it. We want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not the way America needs to operate, and I'm certain with your input here and different things, it has a lot to do with how we can make improvements on those issues. But our hearts and prayers go out to all those folks involved, whether parents, whether mothers, fathers, however it happened. It was an awful, awful weekend, and it's been awful all this year. So anyhow, enough sadness. Let's talk about some special things about women being in the military. it's always been a challenge from that standpoint. I think senior leaders always had a certain opinion about having women in the military, especially involved in the situations of combat and going out and actually engaging in that situation, which is, if no one's ever been there, it's hard to describe, but it's the most volatile situation anyone could ever be in. It's the most fearful thing anybody could ever be in. You never know what's going to happen from one second to another, and it's been concerning. So my question to you is, first off, what's your feelings about that, which I certainly already know, and secondly, what's what's going on inside the military to help expedite that? Because I know there's also been some things going out recently regarding the SEAL teams and stuff like this, and acting inappropriately and not accepting the fact of what's going on. So I'm going to give you get your take on that, and we'll go forward.
Yeah, so well, that's a very multi-layered, multi-dimensional question, right? So I'll try and unpack it. Number one, is it a benefit to have women in the military? I absolutely strongly not only believe that, but the data certainly supports it. I made an earlier comment about CNO Richardson and his comments about how decision making is substantially improved by having women in the teams. Having multi-gender teams results in over 60% improved decision making in theater, and that is profound. At the end of the day, military is not set up to check a box, to prove that they followed some arbitrary rule, or that they want to make somebody feel better about themselves. Military is about readiness and performance. Ultimately, the goal is to defend this nation, and whatever the best makeup is to make that happen, that is the one ultimately that will be chosen. That is what drives the decision Pentagon and overseas to include women in military in combat scenarios. Is it for everyone? Of course it's not for everyone, but neither is any position. We need to find those individuals who are well suited to be warriors in whatever capacity that suits them best. I will also add, and I certainly don't need to apply that this part is particular to women, it's particular to anyone who would like to serve. As we go into what is going to be more of a digital space, we will need people of all different backgrounds, all genders, but beyond that, all physical types, because what we're really talking about then is a cognitive or an intellectual war space. Some of the concerns that existed in the past with regard to women, either physically or there's also been discussion, and we can't avoid it, about sexual assault. When we're talking an intellectual warfare space, we're not dealing with anything physical. We're actually sitting in offices doing it. So there is a lot that is going to be changing in the future, and there's just no question that women have an absolute role to be side by side, not just in support units.
Yeah. You bring up, even combat situations, and I am only referring to one thing that I have. I was going through and watching some tapes of Gulf War situation, one of the first approaches, and following an actual combat mission by an Apache helicopter going in, and the pilot was a woman, and I can tell you she was as aggressive in that situation as any guy. And you can hear her. I mean, this is a live broadcast of her just, talking back and forth with her navigator and everything like that, and how she wanted to go in, and he was advising her that it wasn't in the rules of engagement. She was telling him, she said, if he pokes his head up, he's gone. I'm taking them all out. I'm taking everybody out, and I'm going in. And it was very enlightening, and it just showed that obviously that's a unique situation. But the fact is, to think that and we don't want to trade barbs about men versus women on this whole thing. The fact is, a combat-ready troop, period, is a combat-ready troop. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter race, doesn't matter anything. If you're ready, and you go in and you do your job. And I think it's been long overdue. There's other countries in this world that have combat-ready women. Obviously, Israel is the most profound one, and the one that's probably stands out the greatest, but it's across the board. I think that humanity. We hate to have combat ready anybody, but that's life and that's the way it is. And certainly, um, it's very important to engage
Yeah, if I
a
may
good
add to the
discussion around that.
the international piece, I think is really a great thing to bring up. That a lot of people don't realize that in other nations, I'm sure people aren't surprised to hear that other nations operate in ways differently than we do. Um, but military service in many cases is compulsory, or it is highly, highly encouraged. And it doesn't matter your gender, and it also doesn't matter entirely your skill set. The assumption is that everybody can participate in service to the nation, and what they do is just do a really excellent job of matching your skill sets, interests, and capabilities, or as what we say in military, KSAs, knowledge, skills, abilities, to what it is that is needed to defend the nation. I would really like to see more people serving in a capacity that is comfortable and capable for them than simply to assume that the only way to serve in military, to serve this nation, is through combat readiness. We do need those folks. We also need folks who can be cyber defenders. We also need folks who are able to be medics, and absolutely something that we have been talking about substantially in the military is both sexual assault as well as PTSD and suicide. So we also need our psychologists and individuals that can help heal the mind. So there is a position for anyone who wishes to serve, and it is our job to do an excellent job in talent management, or as I like to say, talent empowerment. And in personnel and readiness, in my position at the Pentagon, this is what we discuss substantially.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting thing, that we're trying to encourage, look for people who fit their meaning, their individual skills rather than going in the other direction. But number two, the thing is I want to really encourage is um, that people don't put a negative point on serving in the military, because that seems to be a much, as much as everyone respects the military serving, the person serving, there's also a large, large portion of society that really wants to put a negative on serving in the military and how it seems to them in a lot of ways to be um, counterproductive to peace, in the world. And we can't keep saying that. I mean, I,
Can you
I find,
clarify? Perhaps I'm
yeah,
too close to military to hear those arguments, but
well, I
I mean,
think in the
we deal in
colleges
teaching English. We deal in
right.
ensuring that there's education for humanity. I mean, there are so many positive. I mean, I served over in Partnership for Peace. That is overseen by the military as well. So I struggle to know.
Well, I'm thinking about since Vietnam, um, in a lot of the intellectual circles, it's been very difficult for people to accept military personnel. And when you talk to them, they certainly are a support of the troops. I'm not saying they aren't, but
Right.
they're not exactly pushing, individuals. And I hate to use the word push, but certainly encouraging individuals to seek out service.
I think we lost you for a minute,
Wanted to be
Dad.
in that time. Are we there again? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, we lost you for Dad. Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I just don't want it to. I want everybody to be thought of that the military is also one of the more positive things in life, and can be very constructive in life and help them develop some life skills they go through. So, um, and it's not all about going out and shooting things. It's all about keeping peace through, as you've always said, intellect and everything else, and the last resort is carrying the big sticks. I think we could do a better job in promoting it from that side, and hopefully in the future we do some of that.
Absolutely. So one of my tasks was to go through and find all the innovation groups inside the military, and I can't recall the exact number, but it's many, many dozens of them. So there's a significant amount of intellectual power I also just finished a paper on cognitive weaponry, and what this really looks at is the need for an intellectual um, warfare set of individuals and teams that will be able to handle the psychological space that we're walking into, the digital space that we're walking into. So uh, there is no question that we need folks who are able to operate, who are able to tackle problems and problem solve under stress. And we need people whose minds are always thinking and strategizing, but who maybe from a physical perspective are not necessarily our best physical assets. One of the positions that we put forward in that paper was that we need to increase our aperture. In other words, increase the types of individuals that we're looking at so that we're not just measuring physical capability, but also intellectual capability. And that when we have a force looking at both, that is when we are at our strongest, because the location of warfare, maybe not the nature of it, but the location of warfare is changing. There's a lot
Yeah,
happening in this space for sure.
well, and I think what you're bringing up is why, and I'm going back to women in the military, is the fact is that's where there should be no boundaries on gender or any culture or anything else like
Yes.
that. I mean, it's so important that we engage everybody in that process, and that we don't limit our scope in choosing just a certain type of physical person. I mean, it's vitally important. And and I'm going to go back to when we talk about women in the military. Women have been in our military since the beginning of our nation. I don't know how many people really understand that, but they've participated, maybe not in a combat
Right.
role, but they've been involved in keeping peace and certainly serving in different capacities across every uh, every I'll say conflict that the United States has ever been in. And so their participation and heroics have are starting to become well documented and processed out. So, I mean, here, and maybe I'm a little prejudiced because I have two daughters, and I can certainly see their strengths and how they perform under any kind of duress and on their daily lives. You being one, and certainly Lindsay the other. I mean, I'm so proud of how that occurs, and there's no limit. And thank God today we are getting to that point where it's starting to take place. Hats off. I
Yeah,
hope we pass that.
we were just at the Women Air and Space Museum. I'm going to get the exact title correct. Probably a week or so ago, and it was very
Hmm.
interesting. And I'll be posting the video later. But it talks about the women who were trying out for the Apollo mission, and at first they did not consider women at all, and then someone really pushed for it, and the women were doing phenomenal on the tests. Their intellectual and psychological strength and willpower was measuring very high, and eventually they cut it, not because the women were not capable, but because they were. And the testimony in Congress literally said, this is not the way of the world. Men are the ones that are supposed to go work. I understand that some people still hold that personal belief, but with respect in military, we're about making sure that we achieve mission success by any means possible. Where there are women, where there are individuals who are physically handicapped but intellectually capable, I don't care who it is or how it is. I like your point when you said no boundaries. It is an honor to serve. It is a duty to serve if you can, in whatever capacity matches you. And we need to put together the strongest teams, no matter the background, no matter the gender, no matter uh, which capability is their strongest. That it is our job to not go by what we call a warm body measurement, which in other words says if you're a warm body, you can fulfill a role, but rather to say what is the optimized organizing structure to ensure we reach mission success. That is happening in the Pentagon. That is being heavily discussed and reworked. And we might need to save that one for another day, maybe next week. This is an area that not only near and dear to my heart, but I know very well. So there's a lot to be shared there. But yeah, I think ending on the point of no boundaries for service. That's a great tagline, Dad.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up one other subject that I think is kind of dear to you also, is the skills that you gain while you're in the military are very easily translated, or not always, but easily translated into civilian life. And I think the one thing that people need to realize is that the military is really, in a peacetime situation, um, actually training thousands of people to do tasks that are needed within our own society to be a better society and do great things. And I think we don't even promote that enough. I think there's things that need to be said about that. I think women are especially in having our troops come home and helping them become civilians again. I think it's you wouldn't believe how helpful they are in doing so and making sure that everyone comes back and can easily um, get back into civilian life and perform the tasks that are helpful to their families and then ultimately to this country. I think that's also very important to talk about. So.
I concur, Dad. I think we should make that the topic of our next discussion, because I can tell you that is exactly the direction that personnel and readiness and the Pentagon is going, to see military as a life experience and a learning experience that not only sets you up to be at readiness to defend this country, but also ready to participate and elevate as a civilian your capabilities for the country. So, twofold goals, and that is, yeah, you nailed it. You really did, and I'm glad to hear you say it. And it just hasn't fully rolled out yet, but it is definitely in the works. So I can speak to you further. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody who's been online. We're busy today in Chicago. We've got our lead cameraman in, and so we're doing some shots and about to head into the central part of the city to do some more. So